Today's video, I think, shows us why the totality of circumstances is so important to our understanding of defensive use of deadly force. For self-defense. Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Tarzana, California.
Tarzana? That's a real place?
Yeah, it's next to Jane. Jane is the one town over.
Okay, all right. This is actually the day before the incident that we are going to see caught on badge cam, where this woman, her last name is Brown, she has in her hand like a barbell, just the bare bar, no weight on it, but it weighs, 10 pounds or something, or maybe 6 pounds. And she swings it at a guy and says to him, "There's no police around here, there's no police anymore," and just like chases him off. Then the next day, the day in question, you're gonna watch her walk up to this person who has no communication with her and whack this woman in the head with that barbell and put her in the hospital. Let's listen in from another angle and see what happened. She went after someone else with it too, who was not caught on camera, and then that led to a number of 911 calls, including the one that we saw earlier. Officers are responding to that. We can see that on badge cam. The officer whose badge cam that we are on right now, you can see he has the 40 mic on him. So he has the big foam gun thing on him of the 40 millimeter, and they are gonna go, oh, she's right down around the corner. There she is right there. So they're gonna chase her down. Let's listen into the audio.
Hey, drop the pipe! Drop the pipe! Ma'am, drop the pipe! Drop the pipe! Ma'am, drop the pipe! I'm good. 10 out of me, 3 shots fired. Officer needs help. We're gonna be on Birmingham and Reseda at the
second officer here, he has the 40 mic on him in this particular case, and he is gonna go around kind of to another angle, gonna see him, pick that one up, put a round on her. I'm not positive if it hit her or not. If it did nothing to her whatsoever. Then she is going to run in and end up getting shot. We see it again from the third angle from the officer who had the taser. You're gonna see him come in as well. He's gonna kind of fumble with his taser a little bit as he gets it out to try to put the taser on this woman, though she's wearing way too much clothes for it. Doesn't have time to get it engaged. She ends up getting shot. Then they did first aid with her. You can see them trying to render first aid and do CPR here, but it proved ineffective. The shot that she took ended up proving fatal. Again, she put at least one other person in the hospital by hitting that elderly woman with the barbell. Thankfully, no officer was hurt or anybody else. I mean, seriously, she's just beating people over the head with this freaking curl bar?
Yes.
I mean, what the crap? You know, Mike, I will say some people just crazy, and there's nothing you're gonna do. And most people who are suffering from mental illness aren't dangerous to others, but when they are, you've got to do something about it.
Yeah, I don't know what the situation is now in LA as far as what resources they have available to them for when, someone is clearly not well mentally and is violent. But this person 100% needed to be off the street as soon as possible. And for anyone who's not familiar, who's never used a dumbbell before, we're talking about a very heavy, solid piece of steel that, I don't know, John, what would you say one of those weighs without the weights on it? 10 pounds, maybe, something like that?
Yeah, maybe 6 pounds, 7 pounds, 10 pounds.
It's a lot of concentrated matter in a very small area, and hitting someone in the head with that is absolutely considered to be deadly force, possibly deadly force. You hit someone in the head with that, it's potentially going to kill them or cause them traumatic brain injury. Either way, it's really bad. This is just as bad as running around shooting somebody in the chest. It's the same thing, in my opinion, because it's just as likely to cause death or great bodily injury, if not more so. So this is a series. Yeah, go ahead, John.
That's what it is. It's that idea of great bodily injury, right? If you're gonna put someone in the hospital, if you're gonna cause them a loss of use of a limb or a significant impairment on their life, you hit somebody in the head, which she did with a barbell, you're gonna put them in the hospital, you cause them a traumatic brain injury. This is absolutely deadly force. And so are we worried about this person as a deadly threat to the community? We 100% are worried about this being a deadly threat because she is showing that she is willing to do that. Now, of course, as they close in, the perp gets a definitive vote in how these go. And she sees the officer and she just decides, you know what? I'm gonna choose violence. And I don't think this was suicide by cop, Mike. I think she thought, I'm gonna whack somebody else here. And is this justified use of deadly force? And I tell folks all the time, if I put you or I as private citizens, okay? And I don't mean you or I, Mike or me, I mean you who are watching or me in this situation, are we authorized to use deadly force to stop this woman from hitting us with this barbell? Yeah, we absolutely are. So is the officer afforded that same level of care? Yes, 100%. The standard is the same. And sometimes people think, well, there's a different standard for the use of deadly force. Not really. And in this case, it's kind of a no-brainer. She needed to be shot.
This is literally a case study for why some less lethal stuff is just ineffective, right? So it whether or not he hit her with the beanbag round or the 40 millimeter round or whatever, that probably wasn't going to stop her. Not from the side. You really need to hit somebody in an area that's going to knock the wind out of them. Generally in the chest area, that's where you want to use those things. And then the taser was never an option. I understand that John and I were discussing maybe LAPD has a requirement. If the person has something other than a firearm, perhaps the requirement is if there's more than one officer, they have one lethal and one less lethal. If that's their policy, they should change it. That's not a good policy to have. The officer should have ultimate discretion because it's he or she in the field who's going to get injured or killed if they aren't allowed to have a gun in their hand because of some policy. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. If you know, comment down below, let us know. We'd appreciate the information. I got to say this. He gave these other two officers and the less lethal as much time as he possibly could. He clearly wasn't trigger happy. He did not want to shoot this person because he waited until this freeze grab to pull the trigger. And this is, for me, is way too close to let somebody with a 5 or 6 pound bar who's been proven to be violent. The proclivity for violence has been well advertised prior to this. This is a little too close for me. I might have taken a shot a moment sooner. We're going to see here in a moment from the other officer's perspective. And if you're thinking, hey, why didn't they do, the Belgian police would have done this and the London police would have tackled her and blah, blah, blah. That's all well and good, but I don't think there was really enough time for them to formulate a game plan. This happened very quickly, and so the outcome is rather predictable, unfortunately.
Yeah, and listen, the officer with the 40 mic. Okay, I don't mind the 40 millimeter, okay? The 40 millimeter less lethal projectile launcher can be useful in some cases, but we see it fail an awful lot. And the reasons that we see it fail, A, for misses, okay? And this is a tough target to hit. She's moving laterally, moving from our right to our left. Number 2, man, you get out at some distance and its effect starts being less. And number 3, it's simply a pain compliance tool. And I'm gonna argue here a little bit. Hey, use your sling. Please, officers, hear me. When you get a long gun out, throw the sling over your neck, pretty please with sugar on top. Next, the bigger thing here is recognize that a pain compliance tool against an altered state person when we have contaminated thinking, probably not gonna work. And you've gotta recognize that as such and maybe choose something else instead.
Yeah, John, you wanted to mention we're going to have people probably asking or stating in the comments, hey, there's a gas, man, I can't talk today. There's a fuel pump behind them in their backstop, and if they miss with their firearm, then they're going to nick that, and it's going to be a giant explosion, and everyone's going to die. And I think we said that Mythbusters has pretty much disproved that that's not really a thing. Listen, if that 40 mic didn't work the first time, if you missed or you hit her, it didn't work, it's time to think of plan B. That thing's not going to have any effect on her. So I would switch away from that to something more effective. Maybe pepper spray might have been effective, but who knows? And now we have this officer with his taser. He's clearly not as versed with a taser as he should be. Never mind the fact that taser isn't really a great option here. He's having to use 2 hands to figure things out in the moment, and that's not great. You need to be more familiar with your equipment than that beforehand.
And I need you to recognize a taser is not an emergency access tool. Because you got to get it out, you have to use your support hand to take the safety off of it to activate the unit, and then get it involved. It is not an emergency access item. What we have here is an emergency, an emergency access item is just not going to work. And secondarily, if you're going to utilize a taser, I think a lot of times, officers will carry this, and I see them fumbling with the activation of the taser a lot. You got to practice with it, guys and gals. You got to be comfortable with that tool such that it comes out, you physically and visually verify that you have a taser in your hand. This is very important. And then you disable that safety quickly so that way you know what you're doing. Because otherwise, fumbling with it, it just was too late.
Yep, absolutely. We talk a lot about why the taser can be ineffective. We have mutual friends in law enforcement that have always sort of found the right use for the taser and the right use case for the taser, the right clothing, the right situation when it's not absolutely an emergency, and it's incredibly effective when it's appropriate. So I think what we're trying to say here is this is just not the appropriate use case for the taser. This is a great freeze grab right here. Look, she's wearing this big outer coat. Odds are one or both of the taser darts is going to go into that house coat or bathrobe or whatever it is and do zero to stop her from doing what she's doing. Plus, at this point, I think tool fixation kind of was a rule of the day here for this guy, because at this point, she's about to potentially murder your partner. That taser should not be in your hand anymore.
I also think here, our officer who was the officer who defended his life, notice he's moving his feet. He's moving backwards here and moving backwards pretty quick. So I know a lot of people think about the tooler drill and they're like, oh, the 21-foot rule says, what the 21-foot rule, what the tooler principle was all about is somebody standing still. And one of the best ways to hack the rule, as it were, is to move your feet, is to get moving. And he did a good job of that here. He got himself back far enough, and you don't got to be far, but just far enough to not be touched by the tool. And he got shots on target and was able to end that threat very, very quickly and effectively because he got high center mass hits at speed while he's moving his feet. And from very close distances, that's exactly what you have to do. Officers, you want to practice that because that is your worst case scenario. One final thing I want to talk about here, okay, is that they're doing CPR on her. Okay, fine, if they feel like that's necessary. But you notice the officer who's doing CPR is standing, and that's not appropriate technique. And Mike, I think that we should be as up to date in our life-saving technique, in our traumatic bleeding response, in our CPR, in those things, as we are in any other tool in our toolbox. And so you got to do this the right way. And listen, officers, take that training very seriously as well. Take that training incredibly seriously that, hey, that means I need to be on my knees here. And if I can't get on my knee for whatever, I got a bum knee or something like that, I ain't going to be the person doing CPR, because this is not going to be effective. This is bad for me and it's bad for my patient. And that's what she is in that moment, your patient. So make sure that you get that training. You stay current on your CPR training and your stop the bleed training, because it's incredibly important. I think that the officer who fired was 100% justified in doing so and did a great job. I think the other officers handled themselves professionally as well. Maybe they were forced to use those particular less lethal tools. I think picking the right one is incredibly important. So make sure that our medical's up to date too, so that we can cover our ASP.